How did you manage all the moments of failure? And how did you navigate that, what sounds like very gracefully?
Not always gracefully. No. I mean, I think anybody
is a sore loser
Thanks for
sometimes.
setting her up. She's like, well, who said that? I didn't say
gracefully. I mean, when you're learning in a high pressure situation, there's going to be moments where you fail in how you communicate with people. And I definitely did. I made so many mistakes. I could, we could talk for 8 hours about
the mistakes.
Just the mistakes in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
I think that when you look at how do we function together and how do we communicate with each other and how do you show vulnerability? So one of my former bosses, I was actually texting with him this weekend, Aaron Botana. I worked with him at K-Force. And I think the world of Aaron. I think he's a wonderful person. The thing that I appreciated the most was Aaron's ability to be vulnerable, to not show angry, negative emotion, but to show emotion in a very positive way, to show that he was a human being, that he was struggling. Absolutely. And it didn't, sometimes people were like, yeah, we don't care.
Right.
I was never that way because, growing up, I grew up in the Gen X. So it's like my dad was not really warm, fuzzy guy.
Right. He was also a Vietnam vet.
So yeah, there's that. But there's also the fact that when he did show us emotion, and it was emotion from a non-judgmental, non-angry, non-frustrated way, those are the moments that you felt the most connected. And so looking at Aaron, seeing how he could vulnerably say, I made a mistake. I did this thing wrong. I'm struggling. I'm trying to learn. Like I would try to go into that particular space. And it's really hard because, again, I was one of those feral latchkey kids where, both of my parents had to work. And so I want to do everything myself and I want to all to be perfect the first time. And so that's the angry, nasty little voice in my head is you're not perfect and you made a mistake and how dare you? And so I have to fight that every single day. And that's where mentorship helps me is to go, hey, it's okay. Like what Christina did. It's like it happens.
I think the vulnerability piece is such a, as you touch on that, so important for two reasons. One, it has that human connection, and then all of a sudden you're in it's a different relationship with an individual in that I'm human, I'm not above anybody else, and I make mistakes just like everybody else, but we're all in this together doing our best.
Yeah.
And so that's one point. The second point is, because running a company, the same thing. I try to use that empathy and always the vulnerability with everybody that works with me, just so that we're a team and they've got to feel that way. It
helps with company culture.
Because there will be times when you as the leader mess up and you want your team to be like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You're always on and things happen. And so that two-sidedness of that is so important. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. And I mean, the reality is that leaders are going to make mistakes. I mean, we're all human. If we're not making a mistake every single day, we're not learning anything.
Yeah.
I am constantly learning from things that I do. And, but you have to be careful with vulnerability when you're in leadership, though, because, and I'm going to take this back to the pandemic. My director of marketing at ATC at the time, I was having to make tough choices of, do we let people go? What do we do? It's a pandemic and you're not allowed to get in the room with people. And we're an organization that depends on people getting in the room together.
Right.
And so I had to make some tough choices. And one of the choices was I could lay her off or I could furlough her.
Right.
And so we looked at the budget aspect and everything. And when I made the decision with the executive committee, like after I got off the call with them, I just started crying because I felt horrible. This was somebody I genuinely cared about, worked very closely with, and she had done nothing but the best job.
Right.
And I had my cry, called my mom, cried with my mom. And the next day I got on the phone with her, with Jessica, and I said, okay, here's what is happening. Here's what we are going to do. Here's the impact for this for you. We're going to furlough you. Here's what this means. And I said, so I'm going to lay all this out and then we're going to stay on the phone and you're going to ask me questions And then you're going to ask me to repeat things, and I'm going to go through all of it. And I knew I had to remain calm because this wasn't about me. Like
Right.
it would be so inappropriate for me to have tears and
Right.
talk about how hard this is
Right.
for me.
Right. And
As she's
Right.
like,
Processing.
did I lose my
Yeah.
job? What can I do? And
Yeah.
of course, she's so wonderful. She was like, well, what if I volunteer to work? I'm like, nope, we'd be breaking the law, but it's all of those things
Yeah.
where, and then I had to explain to her, she's like, well, I mean, maybe I could get a job at this. I'm like, no, you're furlough. This is what, but I'd already called Texas Workforce Commission. I'd already called
Right.
G&A partners who were doing our PEO work.
Mhm.
I called everybody. I got all the information. I got all the data. I had everything ready for her. And so you can show vulnerability, but
Right.
in those
Yeah, yeah,
instances,
yes.
you can't
Right.
say, oh, I feel so terrible about this, or I feel
Right.
so
No,
bad.
yeah.
Like, you can't do that because that's their lives.
Right.
And that's the part where I was so grateful for my executive committee for walking me through that. I was so grateful for our partners for helping me
See that?
be able to explain to her and get information to
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
And we thought it was going to be a 12-week furlough. I think it lasted 3.5 weeks
Right.
Better than you
because
thought.
we worked together as a team to
Yeah.
shore up our resources and ensure that we could bring her back.
Well, the other part of that vulnerability aspect, and I totally agree. I mean, there's time and place, but it is just building that culture, that human connection. The other side of that is if you don't see that reciprocal from who you're talking to. So I have a large network as you do, and there's certain people that I will stop and give a lot more attention to because of who they are.
Yeah.
Versus, and some people in the network are much more self-centered, much less vulnerable, much more about me and this and that. And I just don't have as much time to devote to that because there's just that connection. And so that vulnerability is important for us. Like, we're all human, we're all here. If you've got an ego this high and this and that, I just don't have time to so it is that's what vulnerability is so important is to build that human connection. So
Well, and it's about the give back aspect, right? It's I mentioned Brett Hurt earlier. He's been a mentor on and off for different things. He's been a supporter of the work that I've done. So think the world of him. He's a really great person. He just launched a series that he's doing, and he had asked me, like, I'd reached out to him because I had the flu last week, and I was like, can you please send me what you're working on? I'd love to listen to it because I'm at home sick in bed.
Yeah.
And I need something other than HGTV and House Hunters. And so he sent me the clips and I listened to them. And he had put in there, it would mean a lot to me to get feedback from you.
nice.
Right. And this is somebody who has shown up, supported my programming, supported me, who's like been there. And this is a very busy person, right? He's
Right.
traveling the world, starting companies, raising a family, and he gives time.
Yeah.
And sometimes that time is like a quick response to a text message. And sometimes that time is like, yeah, let's schedule 30 minutes and
Right.
let's talk about this thing. And so it was important to me that I wasn't going to listen to this while I had the flu because I was
Right.
probably going to sleep through some of it.
Right.
So, I did the 7-mile loop around Town Lake, and I know it's called Lady Bird Lake, but it's Town Lake to me. And I gave him feedback. And it was a text. It was, hey, this is what I think, like, we're going to have to do a walk and talk because there was so much in here that spoke to me that, I would outdo both of our data plans if I tried to put all of this in a text. And, and he got back to me and shared with me that it meant a lot to him that I did that. And that, again, goes to that reciprocation.
Nice.
Like, you can't just be the mentee.
Right.
You also have to give something back to that person. You have to be willing to support the work that they're doing.
Right.
You have to be willing to give something to them, even if it's just saying, hey, Amber, you should listen to Bad Bunny. He's great. And I was like, yes, he is. I would have never found this on my own.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still busy trying to figure out what Eddie Vedder's talking about in half the Pearl Jam songs. Like, I would have never found this on my own. And so it's that aspect of, if you're going to be mentored by somebody, you've got to give that back a little bit. You've got to give something to that relationship because it is a relationship.
Yeah. Okay. Quick fire. We got one more question.
So-
I've got one more question. Then
Okay.
we're wrapping this up.
Okay, I have to remember my question, so you go to your question.
Any favorite books or any favorite literature that we should share?
Oh my gosh. So I typically read a lot of books at one time.
Anyone that comes up and says, hey, readers, you should look at this.
I just got done reading the collected works of W.B. Yeats.
Okay.
And I highly recommend people should be reading poetry.
Yeah,
they should be reading fiction. I'm a big fan of business books. I read a lot of business books. If you're going to raise capital, there's several VC focused books, but venture raise is the big one that you need to look at.
Second question.
Yes.
Heroes.
I mean, they're all family members.
Okay.
Awesome. There are definitely people that I admire outside of it. I mean, grew up in Michigan, so Madonna's going to always be somebody that I'm like, ooh, she's amazing.
Nice.
But my family members are, my dad struggling
Sounds like your
with
grandfather was an amazing person too.
Yeah. My mom, who just was kind of the rock of our family. My dad, who after struggling with PTSD for years, and nobody was getting diagnosed back in the 70s and 80s for that. He made a decision in the 90s to go seek treatment and go get help for that. That's like the number one thing that you can do. And so that takes a lot of bravery to go do something like that. I look at my sister, she was a young mom. She started her family at 21. She's now a principal of an elementary school. I look at my brother. He's a dog whisperer, which I love dogs. So it's like, I look at my grandmother who passed away a few years ago, and she was, 92, almost 93. And she looked at life and said, well, or actually she was 93, almost 94. And she said, I'm just going to live every day like looking for joy and happiness. And I think those are the really heroic things.
Right.
Not like these Superman, Batman type things. Like the real heroes are the heroes that show up in your life and show you who they are, and they stand by you 100%.
And that's the thread that comes through you as well.
Yeah.
Last one or no?
Yeah, I want to know what you do for your mental health. It sounds like you have a lot of people giving you sage advice for that.
Well, I mean, I think I was about 46, maybe 45 or 46 when I went to my first therapy session, where I was not like, I don't want to be here. So I don't go every week. I don't go all the time. But when I feel like I need to go, I definitely go. I spend a lot of time outdoors. I love walking. Walking is actually my meditation time. So when people are like, I sit and meditate, I'm like, I can't do that. My brain's too active.
Yeah, walking
And
meditation.
I know that the whole thing about meditation is getting your brain to slow down and focus. But when I'm physically moving and going around the town lake, I shut everything down.
You zen out.
And I'm zenning out.
It's the best time to, I love reading books when I'm on a walk. Not reading, but listening to books. Just because that's whenever you've got to be doing something. And then, because if I sit there and just try to listen to the book, my mind does all these things. But if I'm walking, it's just like, okay, this is like something about the body movement and the information coming in that is just like hitting the right places.
And I've got my AirPods in and I'm focused on what I'm trying to accomplish and what I'm trying to do. And I walked that trail for 16 years. So I pretty much know every place I could potentially trip. So I'm good at this point.
It's autopilot.
Oh, I remember. Tell us about your work day and how you structure it, because earlier you mentioned 45, 15.
So I actually got this from Fast Company years ago, and I hate that I cannot remember the name of the CEO who talked about doing this. Can't even remember if it was a man or a woman. I just remember the advice, which was they had a lot on their plate every single day, and they had things that they had to get done and not enough time to do it. And they had a family and they wanted to be present with their family. So I remember a lot about what this person talked about. I just don't remember who it is. So if it's you, I apologize. Let me know. But they talked about the fact that they set timers for themselves. So 45 minutes and they would work and they would get that thing done in that 45 minutes that they needed to get done. It could be multiple things, or it could just be like, I want to get emails cleaned out. I want to check voicemail. I'm going to have meetings with employees. So they would work for 45-minute stretches. And then they would get up after 45 minutes and they'd walk around. They'd read a book. They'd look at their social media if they wanted to. They gave themselves 15 minutes. And what I do is actually get away from screens. I leave my computer in a completely different room. I go read. I work from home, so I might like change the laundry up, or I might, go make myself some tea and go sit out on the balcony with that for a few minutes. But it's that 15 minutes of walking away from screens for me. of not looking at any of it because my eyes get so tired.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't me that said that, but I did read a book recently called Deep Work, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, it was like our brains are optimal at 90 minutes. We can do 90 minutes and we have to do something else. So,
yeah, I'm going to challenge you and say 45 minutes because what it does...
Well, it's not me. It's the book.
Yeah, no, the book. So I'm going to challenge the book. I like the 45 minutes because if you look at it and you look at all the things you have to get accomplished in a day, you can't get all of those things accomplished if you sit down and try to do them. And then you're sitting too much and then your back hurts and your body hurts. And sitting is the new smoking, right? So, I mean, we've been sitting here for a little bit.
I agree with you 100%. I think that was just deep work, the book. But my days are more like what yours are, which is like, and it's just because there's so many things to get done. I don't spend 90 minutes unless it's a Sunday morning or Saturday morning that I have that a lot of time. Other than that, it can't happen. But thank you so much for being with us. I enjoyed all the nuggets and enjoyed your life story and all the perspectives. A lot of wisdom there.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.